This is the longest my hair has been, I think, ever, like since childhood. I typically like the buzz cut look, especially because I live in Miami with the humidity, but I'm kind of digging it. So guys, I have a story for you. So this past weekend, I met up with a neighborhood friend, buddy, acquaintance. I say that because you know how sometimes you meet people, you don't really have anything in common, but you meet, they're nice, you're nice, you have a nice banter. You know that it's not meant to be like a lifelong friendship in any way, but they invite you to things, they're proactive, it's that kind of thing. So we don't really have much in common. To clarify, the reason why, I would say we have very different lifestyles. He's very stereotypical Miami, parties every day to some extent. Like if nothing else, he's smoking weed at home every day. Always out and about. And that's just not my life. That's not my lifestyle. Even if I wanted to do that, I don't think I could. I don't know how people have the energy to do that every single day. It's important for me to have proper sleep, be in bed by a certain time in order to just function on a daily basis and not get fired from my full-time job, continue my side business and so on, right? But anyway, he from time to time will invite me to things or, random weekend, he'll say, hey, what are you up to? Oh God, can you guys hear that? They're doing construction outside. I really don't want to restart this video. Hopefully it won't be too obnoxious. Spur of the moment, we're doing it. I'll speak more loudly. So anyway, he invites me to things. He says, hey, what are you up to tonight? Want to go out with us to this thing? Usually I say no. This past weekend I thought, you know what? He's always inviting me to things. It's so rare that I meet somebody who's proactive like I am and effort-based and inclusive. So I thought, let me meet him halfway. It's cool of him to do this, right? So we meet at Twist, the local gay bar. Twist was packed to the brim, line outside on the block. I've only ever seen that last year, spring break. So immediately I'm like, oh fuck, is this really what I want to get into? I just feel like I'm reaching that age where, and I haven't said this before, but I haven't been to Twist in a long time. I've just kind of started distancing myself from that world. And I've said this before to the apps as well. I just feel like it's not conducive to the life that I want to live. And, at a certain point, it's like you keep doing the same thing and getting the same result, right? So it's like, I don't want to keep chasing that 1% high of maybe meeting somebody interesting, maybe having a fun night. Anyway, so decided to go out anyway. And as I'm walking into the bar with this neighborhood friend and his group of friends, I say to one of his friends who I'm just meeting that night, I'm like, I feel like I'm too old for this. I hit 30 this year and I get so easily triggered by people bumping into you because they're just wasted and they don't care. And people yelling in your face to talk to their friend across the room. I don't know. Maybe it's just you get to an age where it's like you've become a more polished version of yourself and you just want you don't have patience for people who are not there. I don't know. Maybe it's pretentious. I just was already annoyed within a few minutes of walking in. And the guy who I told this to was like, well, then you probably just shouldn't be here. If you feel that way, it's not the right environment for you. And at first I was like, whoa, he's a little curt, I guess, right? But after talking to him more, I realized he's just incredibly transparent and a no bullshit person. And so I was intrigued. I was intrigued by the way he communicated is pretty rare, I think, to meet somebody that no filter. And it's funny because, again, this is another person who at first glance I was like, I have nothing in common with you. I would describe his vibe, his aesthetic as Brooklyn hipster, very, very Brooklyn hipster, Bushwick hipster. For those of you who understand what I mean by that, in terms of his look, just looks very alternative, artsy, and what he would talk about and stuff. So it's funny how, had this preconceived notion that we're just totally different and we're probably not meant to jive. But I like to talk to people. I like engaging with people who are different than me. I'm also a curious person. So I keep talking to him. And progressively as we're talking, I could feel his wall coming down. And he had sort of expressed the same thing, that he doesn't really belong in these environments, but he's visiting Miami. He wanted to go out. Here we are. And so we sort of bonded through this thing of we don't really fit in here in this environment. And the more I sort of probed, and the more I'm having this cerebral conversation with this guy at 2 a.m. at the local gay bar, while everybody else is like wasted, prancing around, we kind of just clicked. And we ended up staying. Eventually, the person who brought us there, right, the guy who I said invited me, and the other friends, they all went home. Before we know it, it's 5 a.m, and they're kicking us out because it's last call. They're closing the bar down. And we're both looking at each other like, how did this happen? We both expressed that we instantly sort of judged each other and felt like, oh, I'm not really going to connect with this guy. Like, we're not on the same wavelength. And we spent literally 4 to 5 hours talking and having a really deep conversation. And both of us were stunned by that and like enamored by that, because it's a rarity that we did not expect to happen that night, and definitely did not expect to have with each other. Now, I've shared stories before on this channel, clearly based on the way that I converse and that I intellectualize things. Like, I could tell that I have moments like that more than he does, and that he is maybe more closed off and comes in more sort of like, oh, I'm not going to connect with these people. But I don't think I've ever had a connection with someone like that where it was for that many hours, and before you know it, it's like, oh my God, it's 5 a.m. Then we went outside where they kicked everybody out, and we talked for another half hour or so. And it was just this refreshing night and moment of like, I see you, you see me. I didn't expect this. This is really cool. And there was no agenda. Like, he's a cute guy, just not really what I'm attracted to. And I think it was the same for him. So there was something about it that felt very pure, to have a connection like that. And it's funny because one of the things I said to him during this conversation was, I just kind of assumed that you were more like the guy who introduced us because you knew him. And he was like, oh, I barely know him. Like, it's just when I come here to visit, it gives me somebody to be out with, because I don't want to be out here on my own. And so again, I had these preconceived notions of like, what's that saying, birds of a feather flock together. But how hypocritical of me to think that, because he could have thought that about me, since he met me through the same guy. So it was this interesting night of like breaking down your judgments of somebody and realizing like, oh, how often do you have these walls up that keep you from connecting deeper with somebody? And once you take those walls down, it kind of shows, right? And then somebody else feels more comfortable taking their walls down. And if you think about it, that's kind of how dating is, right? Or even just making a long-term friend. It's like progressively the walls come down, and you get closer and feel more safe with somebody. But I've never had it happen like this, where within one night, by the end of the night, it was like, I really like you. Like, it feels like we come from totally different worlds, but there's like a soul connection here. Of course, we established this thing of like, when you come to New York, definitely come, hang out with me in Brooklyn. When you come back to Miami, hang out with me. And I was really, I don't know what the word is, proud, as weird as that sounds, that I made myself vulnerable to a stranger in a way that actually benefited me, and that I got value out of it. Because how often do you put yourself out there, right? And you end up becoming jaded because people either don't value that vulnerability or they take advantage of it. And this was a moment where we both sort of ended up being in our little bubble, observing the world together, like at the bar, like the people watching, and feeling in that moment like I feel safe with a total stranger. I don't know, there was something kind of beautiful about it, and I wanted to share this story with you guys. Have you ever had an experience like this?